Are you ready?
Yes.
Ate. You consent to being recorded?
Yes.
Ate. So I'm doing prompt number 3, which is people with disabilities are regularly expected to navigate a variety of slights, obstacles, and indignities during their everyday lives. According to Dr. Hernandez, this is because our society was not designed to accommodate people that do not fit into our ableist box of normalcy. For your response, you are to identify and discuss blind spots that you have noticed about yourself with regard to physical and or cognitive disability and why you think they exist. Identify and discuss a single obstacle or challenge that people with disabilities experience that you would most like to eliminate within your own community, at Texas A&M, your church, your apartment complex, your dorm, etc.
That's your part.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean,
Okay.
You'll be answering those questions too, but I'll read them off one by one to you.
Okay.
And then identify and discuss how you would go about eliminating it. And it says, for this prompt, you are to directly respond to each of the above and interview one person, friend, colleague, peer, family, whatever, about the same questions that you responded to, and then compare and contrast how you responded to the questions with one individual that you interview. So,
Okay.
I'll start with question 1 again. Identify and discuss the blind spots that you have noticed about yourself with regard to physical and or cognitive disability and why you think that they exist. So basically, why do you think you're ignorant? If you think you're ignorant, why do you think you're ignorant? But on like the way disabilities exist in society.
I don't think I'm ignorant to them. I mean, I'm aware that they exist, but I will say that sometimes I don't think that I think we all can get stuck in our own head as we move throughout the day, and you get wrapped up in your own stuff, and maybe you're blind to things like that around you. I would say that for me, like if it's a physical disability, I can generally see that.
Yeah.
Like that, I can observe that. I can see that there is somebody in front of me that could benefit from me getting the door for them because they're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
But the cognitive stuff is more challenging because, that's hard. I mean, you have to have an interaction. I mean, it's not something visible because it's not physical.
Yeah.
So I would say, if anything, I am probably more blind to something cognitive than physical.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like we get told in school how, not that we should, because I mean, people with disabilities want us to just treat them like people, like maybe acknowledge that you have a disability, but like don't make it a talking point. But like it is kind of hard.
Well, and what's and I feel like we continue to broaden the definition of disability. I mean, you look in the school system and you've got kids that have ADD or ADHD. You've got, 504s and IEPs, and it's like there's accommodations that are made for lots of things. But does that mean that a student sees that, or does that mean that student sees that as a disability? I mean, I don't know. I just think that the definition, we have expanded the definition, and so something that to me it seems like a disability, because I think of a disability as just something being challenging. It's just not as easy for you to, if you have attention deficit disorder, it is just not as easy for you to sit and maybe sit still and listen to an hour-long lecture as it is for somebody who doesn't. So to me, like, that's a disability. But I don't know that they see it that way. And that's not anything that I'm going to know. Like, I'm not going to know. I wouldn't know unless I had an interaction or something. If there's somebody that has, I think it's called apraxia, I think. I have a friend whose daughter has that. She's actually just a year younger than you, and she can't speak.
Like at all?
I mean, otherwise, she looks normal.
What do you mean she can't speak?
She can't speak. She was born with some birth defect is probably not the right word, but she was born with some like if you had Down syndrome, then you would have altered DNA, like, trisomy 21. She has like a DNA alteration, like a genetic mutation, that's something that occurred at birth. And she has a series of things. There's a series of things that she's essentially your age, and she's just a senior in high school. But she's never going to be able to live on her own. And, but I mean, she's, she's, getting it done. I mean, she's been in school, obviously, and things like that. But to look at her, you would not think that she can't verbalize. But she can't. So it's like, but that's a disability to me.
Does she sign?
I don't honestly know, Hannah, because, I don't live with them. They're a military family friend of ours. They've been retired for a long time. But yeah, I mean, it's just so, what I might consider a disability, somebody else may not. I think about people that are deaf. Well, but you can see and you can sign and you can read lips, so you're still able to communicate. It's just not in the same way that I am. Or if you have attention deficit disorder, it doesn't mean that you can't sit in the hour lecture and get the information and learn it. And the ultimate goal of learning it doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's just that you have to do it differently. Well, I mean, that could be said about everybody. I mean, we all learn differently, like whether it's a visual or, auditory or whatever the case may be. So I feel like the definition of disability as a society has gotten really broad. And so I don't, you hear people say, oh, well, I'm not disabled, I'm differently abled. Like, I don't know what the right word is to use. So, to me, I think I obviously migrate towards somebody that I would say you have a disability if you are, like, I can physically see it.
Yeah.
But I recognize that there are other things that can be debilitating.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Like you're, I mean, if you're, you like, there's people that, can't leave their home. Okay, well, that's debilitating,
Yeah.
Like levels of anxiety or mental illness or different things like that would, leave you unable to function by what maybe society norms were.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's a very long roundabout way, but I mean, I wish disability could be something clearly defined, but I just think that the further we move along in the world, I mean, do you think that you think that you have a disability because you had the heart condition?
I mean, yeah, that's what I wrote about, but I acknowledge that it's temporary.
Right.
Like I am temporarily disabled because I can't move. I mean, I would consider myself disabled, at least during the thick of it, like from January 24th to March 5th.
Yeah, you couldn't function in the way that we believe a normal 20-year-old female should function.
Well, I wasn't even functioning the way that I had functioned previously. So, like, not even general broad spectrum labels. Like, I wasn't functioning the way I was used to. Therefore, I needed to be accommodated. I couldn't go to class. So, like.
Right. Well, and to that point, think about like a woman that's pregnant.
I'd consider that a disability.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like it's.
I mean, there's pregnant people parking spots. Like pregnant, whatever the word is.
Sure.
But
And
like,
there are some things that you know. I went to Disney World. We took you to Disney World when I was 7.5 months pregnant with your sister, and I couldn't ride Space Mountain. No other reason other than they don't allow pregnant people to ride the ride. I could do everything else, but I couldn't ride Space Mountain.
but here's a question, like back to the blind spots part. Are there things in the world that you didn't recognize could be difficult when you got pregnant, and then you got pregnant and realized that there are ways the world won't accommodate you?
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure.
Because I feel like that.
Well, and I would say it's not even so much. It wasn't even so much about being pregnant as it was like having the baby, like carrying the carrier and needing to open the door, and the door being so heavy, you know, like it having so much resistance that it was hard to open it and get the stroller and myself through it.
Yeah.
Or it was hard to open it, like it took so much strength to open it that ideally I would have been able to use both hands to open it, but I couldn't because I was holding the baby carrier in the other arm. I will say that when I was a new mother with young babies in strollers and things like that, I felt like at that point in my life, I related more to somebody who was physically disabled, meaning like a walker, a wheelchair, or something like that, more than I had ever seen before. And the number of people that like needing a ramp.
Yeah. We talked about that in class, is the fact that the Americans with Disabilities Act, like when it comes to like cutting a curb, like making ramps on the curbs, like that didn't used to be a thing. And then when that became like a mandated, like you have to have accessible entrances, people realized that it helps everybody. Like the fact that a person bringing in like packages off a UPS truck on a dolly, like they don't have to hop the curb.
Yeah, I mean, your 94-year-old grandmother benefits from that because she's in a walker.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yeah, if she can have the slow incline versus the hard start and stop of a step, yes. And, you know, me, like with a stroller trying to off-road, essentially, banging around a baby, you know, like hopping curbs and stuff, yes, we all benefit from that. I mean, I spent last week at Cornerstone, and for the first time in probably a year, the elevator was functional. Now, there are handicapped parking spaces, and they are all on the first floor. So I recognize that the desire to put the money, effort, and energy into actually getting the elevator replaced was probably a very low priority. And I clearly don't know what the issue was. I mean, maybe it was a supply chain issue with parts. I don't know. But it was not lost on me that any time that I had to park on any level other than the first level, I had no choice but to use the stairs.
Yeah.
And because I don't have a handicap tag, but what if I had had a broken foot?
Yeah,
that's not something that's temporary, and it would have been very challenging for me to navigate 3 flights of stairs, but I wouldn't have qualified for a handicap tag and the ability to park in one of those first floor spots.
Yeah. Dr. Hernandez was talking about that because when he had office hours in person, he was saying, like before the sociology building, or not building, before sociology moved out of the academic building for offices because they relocated them when all that got restructured.
Yeah.
And the fact that in the academic building there's only one elevator, and that elevator works less times than it doesn't. So, like, it doesn't work more often than it does. And he's had students that, like, can't get to his office. And they'll email him and be like, I can't come to your office hours because, yet again, the elevator's broken. And
I physically can't get there.
Then I guess they emailed the university, like, both of them, like, the student and Dr. Hernandez. And they were like, well, we to maintain the integrity of the building. And like the historical aspect of it. And then, but like at the same time, if you only ever have one elevator in the building and that elevator is broken all the time, well, why wouldn't you want to, or at least maintain the elevator that's there? Like, why is it taking 12 weeks to get it fixed only for it to break after a week? Like, there just needs to be, because I mean, he said he would just meet downstairs with the student, but like there are conversations that you want to have in private, and that removes the dignity from the situation and the people involved. So like that's not fair either. So, but the old ags won't put in another elevator because it's an old building and they want the building to be old. Which I think is kind of stupid, but whatever. I mean, I can't fix it.
But back to your questions, obviously. But I just think that I think the word disability is very loosely used, and it's meant to cover such a broad thing, such a vast amount of issues, whether they be permanent or temporary. And then I think there's people that wouldn't want you to say, like, I don't have a disability, I'm just differently abled. Okay, I mean, if that's your truth, that's your truth. I'm not here to tell you that your truth is wrong. Yeah. So it's a slippery slope. But yes, I would say for me, obviously the physical things that are right in front of my face that I visually see, a blind person walking with a stick, their guide sticks, whatever those are called, and then obviously a wheelchair or a walker or something of that nature. I mean, those, I am not blind to that at all, but I recognize that I probably have the most blindness to maybe something that would be mental, like somebody with autism, or something like that.
And then the second question is identify and discuss an obstacle that you would like to eliminate, or that people with disabilities experience that you would like to eliminate within your own community. Obviously, your community is different than mine, but what do you see in Stafford, Virginia that disabled people have to deal with that they shouldn't?
Well, I mean,
or in the military community, you could talk about that too.
Well, I think that in general, for me, it kind of does go back to the physical things, because I still recognize, I mean, there's things going on around here all the time where they're doing work on, they did it in the neighborhood a few years ago, where they redid some of the curbs because we still had curbs that weren't accommodating for a wheelchair or a walker or a mother with a stroller. I mean, we see that in, like, I use the elevator example, we see stuff like that on base. So I think just any of those things, I still will pull doors that, I mean, are way too heavy.
Yeah.
And I think there's not a button to press, for somebody that has a wheelchair or, the mom in the stroller or something like that. I mean, I think the height of counters, I've noticed, I've been at grocery stores and they don't have like the extra little thing that would come out.
Like at Walmart where you press it and it comes out?
Yeah. I mean, the height of the credit card machines. I mean, just things like that. You don't notice it until you see somebody struggle.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, really on the most basic of levels, for me, it kind of does just come, like, how hard would it be to, put a little ledge, or drop your credit card machine, or, I mean, gosh, I drive an SUV and I go to the ATM machine and I'm still reaching. Like, I can't imagine if you were like a little person and had shorter arms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you're driving a regular sized car, you're sitting in a regular sized seat, your vehicle has been modified with the pedals and steering wheel for distance and everything, but you can't change the distance of your arms.
And you shouldn't
like,
have to go
can you
inside or
breathe?
get out of your car just because you want to go to the ATM.
What? Yeah, I mean, like, stuff like that. I mean, I was at the car wash the other day, and I pulled as close as I thought I could, and I still had to open up my door to press the little buttons to choose my wash.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm average height. Well, so, like, just things like that I think about are just, I mean, the height of counters, in the height of tables and chairs and things like that. I mean, even the width of, like, a booth at a restaurant. When you and your sister were little and we would go to dinner, I didn't necessarily want you in a turned upside down high chair like your carrier there out in the middle of the aisle where people were walking and could bump you and knock you over, or, God forbid, a waitress or waiter drop food on you, hot food or beverages or something like that on you. I wanted you to be, like, scooted into the booth with us.
Yeah.
But the distance between the permanently, screwed in table and the booth, the seats that you would sit in were not wide enough to allow the carrier to fit on the seat in a lot of places.
They aren't at Outback. Because, I mean,
No, they're
we
not.
even had people that would, like, objectively, yes, this man was probably technically obese. But, like, to me, he was just a bigger, I mean, actually, this specific man was definitely large. But all we had available was booths. And, like, he was okay to wait for a table, but, like, the embarrassment of having to ask for a table and then only to walk up to a booth just to see if he would fit, because he said he would see. And then they walked out because he didn't fit in the booth. Like,
Right.
That, even for people with kids, people who are larger, taller, larger, whatever, like, that shouldn't be a thing. And, I mean, how would you, like, with all those things that you said, what are ways that, let's say, you could fix it? How would you fix it?
Well, I mean, I think you have to really, I mean, when you design a space, I think you have to think about others. I mean, I have heard this kind of joke, over my years, particularly when we lived in base housing. Like, everything in base housing was, like, hung high. Like, the light switches were high and stuff like that. And we used to joke as military spouses. We were like, oh my God, there was only men involved in the designing of this.
Yeah.
It's like, did you ever consult with, did you have a woman involved at all? Or I mean, these are family houses. Like, I've got kids that are going to need to learn to turn on and off lights and things like that. And everything was always so high. And I ran into last year when I was I guess it was last year when I was with Military Hearts Matter at the Modern Day Marine Expo. We were having a conversation. I was having a conversation. It was an Army wife, me, Marine Corps wife, and then a Navy wife. And the Navy wife I know, the Army's person I met through the Navy wife. The three of us were having a conversation, and the Army wife was currently stationed in the Nashville area, which is a really, there's a whatever, I think it's maybe Fort Carson, I can't remember what the base was. But anyway, she's stationed in an area that is, because of Vanderbilt, they're near Vanderbilt. And because of Vanderbilt's, renownedness of its medical facilities and the teaching hospital and whatnot, a lot of special needs families in the Army will get stationed there because they have the ability to service their family's medical needs because of Vanderbilt. So,
not the government being accommodating. Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, she was giving me an example of a family that I mean, this was an Army wife whose soldier was in command, and they had multiple physically disabled families in their unit, within their command. And she was talking about with us one of the issues that they were having with one of their families was that they have a child. The family has a child that is, I mean, high needs, and they're in base housing, but the ADA compliant, they put them in ADA compliant housing, but the ADA compliancy is, okay, so there's a bedroom on the first floor. Well, it's the master bedroom.
Sounds like
And
California.
And then the only bathroom that's ADA compliant is the master bathroom. So the parents actually are in a smaller room upstairs because they've had to give their child that room because it's the only room in the house that can accommodate. And so it's just like, the narrow-mindedness that as a military family, the only person in the family that could have a need for an ADA compliant space would be an adult is so stupid.
Yeah. Or the fact that, like, I mean, I don't know if this would be the case, but what if you have multiple kids that need ADA compliant rooms?
Well,
you only have one?
It's like they should be in a one-story house.
Are you not even I thought being in the service meant that you pretty much can't have any disabilities. So why would they think it would be an adult in the first place?
The service member can't, but it doesn't mean that their spouse or children don't.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like,
yeah,
that's stupid. That it would be the master bedroom.
Right. So so the narrow-mindedness that if you needed an ADA compliant space, well, it would obviously be one of the adults in the room, or adults in the family is just stupid. It's just stupid. And what you end up doing when you have a family that's like that, and what you end up doing to that family is when you are under the stress and strain already of the military lifestyle, the moving around, the reestablishing care and things like that for a child that has needs, or anybody in your family that has needs. And now what the Army really needs, what the nation needs, is for that family to be strong, which means they need for that husband and wife, or those spouses, if whatever your situation is, they need for those parents to be strong. They need those parents to be able to be in a position to care for themselves and their family, so that soldier can come to work and do his job. And you're putting additional stress where it's not needed.
Yeah. Do you think
the parents need a respite? The parents need a place to go, and it's probably not upstairs in this situation in the busy hallway with the smaller bedrooms and all the other kids.
Yeah.
It's just, so anyway, that was just an example that had come up, and it just, not too terribly long ago, and it was like, yeah, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, duh. Who built these houses?
Like, every room should be ADA compliant.
The whole place, every door. There should be no space that you couldn't be in.
Yeah.
But there was, for this family, there was. And they're not in a position to go out in town. It makes the most sense for them to be in base housing from a financial perspective, and they don't have to wait, and they, can get right in and things like that. So, that's just one example. So I think in general, coming to the table and having representation from those communities, whatever they may be. When you think about building a school, I think nowadays when you think about building a school, you have to think about the sensory overload for students with autism.
Yeah.
The lighting matters. The sound matters. And I think you have to be, cognizant of things like that. When I was growing up, well, not when I was growing up, but one thing that I have noticed is a lot of newer churches have basically like crying rooms, places where parents can take maybe their agitated baby who is being disruptive in church service, but they can go to a quieter space that's kind of soundproof in the sense that you're not disturbing the worship service, but you can still be a part of the worship service because you can see it and you can hear it. But you can kind of control that environment. Well, I mean, if you're in your gymnasium, and I mean, if somebody that's got an auditory disorder or something like that, or autism, where the sound and the light is a problem, I mean, what would it be to have a small space where people like that could go so that they could still watch the game? Think of it like being in Kyle Field and watching a game versus being in a box.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just kind of recognizing that you may, like in a school setting or a military housing setting or things like that, or an office, that you may need to accommodate people that have things that you physically can see, but also things like autism or whatnot, intellectual maybe disabilities, although, most autistic people are brilliant, but, things like that where you would need to accommodate. Think about that going in. Maybe that means your lights in every office are on a dimmer.
Yeah.
So that maybe somebody who was, had sensitivity to light had the ability to control their lights. Well, we can't just say that this office right here is going to be the one that we keep open and available for somebody that we hire that's got light sensitivity. Just make them all that way. Just give everybody the ability to control it.
And I mean, nobody would be mad about that, because my biggest complaint going through school was the fact that the fluorescent overhead lights are so draining. Like, they don't make you want to go to school. They're ugly. They make everybody look bad. Like, at the end of the day, you want nothing more than to sit in a quiet and dark room. But, like, you shouldn't feel like that leaving school.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, things like that, just recognizing obviously the physical things, but being aware. And I think particularly in today's world where we are more accommodating of people with, like, let's say somebody with Down syndrome, it is not at all rare to go into a public place, the grocery store, Target, a restaurant, and somebody be working in there that has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's that way for a lot of things. I mean, whether you've got autism or whatever the case may be, I think we're seeing more and more and more of that, which is great because, these people have, people that are affected by some of those things are more than capable of wanting to contribute to society and being able to do so. And I would imagine in some professions, particularly maybe like the computer sciences, where maybe you're just like a mad coder and you just sit and code, you know what I mean, or something like that, where you might need a space that was not bright. You might need the ability, given what you do, whether you have some sort of disability or not, just the nature of the work that you do requires that you be in a different kind of space. I mean, your dad works in the basement, for God's sake. He's got a vitamin D deficiency as a result of it.
He's disabled.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just say, like, when you come to the table, I understand, like, historical spaces, things like the academic building on campus. I am somebody who believes that should be preserved, and I do recognize that. But then I think we have to really look at that as a university about what we're using it for.
That's true.
You know, maybe we do something different with that space. If we don't have the ability to alter it, then maybe we do something different with the space.
That's true. Don't make it offices that students would have to go to, and then maintain it for the faculty that would be using it less. Like, if it's just faculty, then that's less people putting strain on the elevators, and then possibly easier to maintain.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think you just have to be open to working around things. And I think if it's new construction, then, you know, they're building a new high school and a new elementary school in Stafford County right now. They're supposed to open.
Really?
Yeah, they're supposed to open in 2026, so it won't matter. I mean, you know, it won't matter for us. But, you know, I hope that they're thinking about those. I hope they're thinking about those communities. You know, the idea that maybe you don't have an autistic kid in your building when you open, but you sure could.
Or somebody with cerebral palsy. Like,
yeah, for sure.
With those big,
like,
make sure your hallways are wide enough if they use those walkers, like the rolly ones or the arm ones. Like, they shouldn't be getting in the way of other students, just like other students shouldn't be getting in the way of them.
Yeah, and the likelihood that, you know, you would hire a teacher that may need some physical accommodations. I mean, we have a person that serves on the PTSO board for the high school, and she's wheelchair bound. And she is an active volunteer, and she, you know, we have to go. We don't have a key to the elevator. Like, the key to the elevator at Forge is not readily available to everybody. Like, you can't just go press the button for obvious reasons.
But, I mean, you should be able to. Like, that's a dignity thing. Like, why should somebody have to ask?
Yep. So, I mean, you know, when she comes in, you know, I mean, she's great. She's a lovely person. But when she comes in, I mean, you know, she's got to get the key.
That's so dumb.
And, yeah.
Because at that point, that's just a freight elevator, which means it's not an elevator. Like,
well, I mean, you know, if you're concerned about kids getting in there and doing things they shouldn't, a very valid concern. Maybe when that school was built, it should have been a clear elevator.
Yeah.
A glass elevator. Or maybe it should have been put in a location that was visible to the main office staff, so that you knew who was in it. I mean, what's to say that you couldn't have put a camera in it? You know, things like that. So that, yes,
put a vape detector in the elevator.
so that to your point, the dignity of the person is, you know, is salvaged.
Yeah. Do you think it would make more sense to have, like, government oversight, or do you think people should just be more conscious of the people that they move around the world around?
I would like to think that people would just take care of each other, but we know better. Yeah. And we know that money matters, and we know that timelines matter. And without the government oversight, I do believe that businesses would cut corners. I do believe that they would do what is the fastest, what is the cheapest, what is the easiest. And that is most likely not going to be taking those communities into account. So I'm totally fine with government oversight for that.
Should it be like an extension of the ADA or like its own thing?
No, I think it should be an extension of that. I mean, I think the ADA compliance would, I mean, I think we would be looking at an expansion of the ADA compliance to include things like maybe, you know, like autism or, you know, like Down syndrome. And it may, I have no knowledge.
I've only skimmed it, but I do need to read through it for the sake of this assignment.
It may already take those things into consideration, but I don't think there needs to be another government arm. I think that it would, like anything else, it would just be kind of, an expansion of, now we know more, so we need to do more.
I think it would make sense for it to be there, but also, like, with building codes, it should just be included in that. It shouldn't just be, okay, we're going to build a building, let's make sure the building is safe. Okay, well, it should be, let's make sure the building is safe and accessible.
Well, and I would like to think that, sometimes when you want to do something different, like you'll find, like when you build a house, well, I would like to, this is the plan, and I can build the house for $200,000. And if I build it for $200,000, it's going to have vinyl siding and it's going to have carpet. Well, I don't want carpet. I want tile. Well, then that's going to mean we have to charge you this much because you're changing it. Like that's going to change things. It's going to require different things, so we're going to have to charge more. I would like to see that maybe through the ADA compliance that, buildings and companies and things like that are in construction are not able to charge more for those accommodations.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if they do. I don't know if they can. But if they do, and they're currently allowed to, they shouldn't be allowed to.
Yeah.
It should not cost someone more to accommodate a bigger population of people.
Yeah. I mean, it already costs so much with healthcare and stuff, so, like, the least you could do is charge them the same. If my rent is $620 a month for my normal room, it shouldn't be $750 a month for a disabled room.
Right.
Or an ADA compliant room. Like,
right.
you as the building just need to eat that cost. Or raise everybody's rent $1, and then there you go.
Right.
It's fixed for everybody.
Yeah. So what else?
That's it. That's my last question.
Okay. I don't know if I really answered him, but, I tried.
Yeah. I think you did. Hopefully I remember what we talked about, because this is 42 minutes of footage, so...
Did you record it all?
Yeah, I have to. I have to submit it.
Oh, okay.
Because if I don't submit it, then I don't get points. So I have to prove that I had the conversation. So.
Well, nobody's going to listen to our 42 minutes, but...
No, but I gotta have it.
That's fine. All right.
Well, I'm gonna write this.
Good luck with your project.
Thanks. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.